Now let's move on to H2 mathematics. So this is the rough weightage of the topics. So 70% pure mathematics and 30% statistics. So you can see it's very drastic difference compared to H1, because for H1 the majority of the weightage lies in the statistics, whereas for H2 is actually in the pure math. Pure math means your calculus, your graphing, vectors, complex numbers, so on and so forth. So compared to H1, just now in the previous slide I mentioned, H1 is only about 30% the level of difficulty of H2. That means H2 is more than twice as challenging as H1, because we are going to cover a much wider range of topics compared to H1. And to survive H2 mathematics, the ideal requirement is to score an A1 for E-Math and at least an A2 for additional mathematics. This is an ideal requirement. For many JCs out there, they don't really enforce this minimum requirement, mainly because they cannot have too many students opting to take H1 and very few people taking for H2. So maybe like at the lower tier JC, personally I have taught students, let's say from Yishun Innova JC, who have scored a C6 for A-Maths. They are still entitled to take H2 Math. I've taught another student from the same JC, again YIJC, who didn't even have additional mathematics at O level, but he is asked to take H2 mathematics. Now, based on experience, these students, they will really struggle a lot for H2 mathematics, because O level additional math is really the very foundation stuff they need to do H2. It's just like your A maths is just like learning 1 plus 1 equals to 2. Before we talk about more advanced addition and advanced number manipulation. So really, if you didn't get an A2 at least for A maths and you are going to take H2 math, please spend some time work on your A maths and brush up all the foundation in order to have a more smooth journey in H2. And I'm talking about surviving H2 means passing. I'm not even talking about getting an A, because based on experience, you can look at the seniors. Many students can get A1, A2 for A maths, but then when they reach to H2 level, the majority of them will simply just fail the exams. So what is H2 objective, or who is it catered for? It's catered for students who wish to pursue science related courses in university. So it could be science courses, like it can be a math major or other science major, computing, because you also need some mathematics behind computing programming, and of course engineering, because engineering is very calculus heavy, which we are going to cover quite a large chunk of calculus topics under H2. So let us look at the assessment for H2 mathematics. So you are supposed to take 2 papers, 3 hours each. The questions over the past 10 years or so are less routine compared to H1, especially in the recent years. You can't really spot a trend because the questions type keep on changing. So it won't just be like algebra, drill and practice questions. There are also contextual questions, meaning they give you a scenario in words. So based on the story or the scenario, you're supposed to imagine, understand what is going on before you proceed to solve for the maths. So in this aspect, even though H2 mathematics doesn't require any physics background knowledge, students who take physics will still have the advantage, because in physics they are trained to do similar things. They have a scenario and they are supposed to do some calculation to find out maybe like the amount of force, the amount of electricity, etc. And most of the A-level contextual questions are kind of physics based. So students without physics background, even though you don't really need physics, they may feel a little uneasy because the story contents doesn't make sense to them. And for the past decade, when I teach in schools, the trend has been that, when we look at the performance of students coming from different subject combinations, students with H2 physics tend to do better as a whole compared to students who do, let's say, bio and chem or chem and econs. So unlike H1 mathematics, whereby minimal algebra, for H2 you'll be algebra intensive. Sometimes some A-level paper, the questions come out are so intensive that maybe some tutors out there, they also face difficulty. And we require a lot of precision. That means sometimes we may just say, oh, you're supposed to compute something living in exact form without the use of a calculator. So everything is by manual algebra. And bear in mind, for mathematics, there is no such thing as error carry forward. Meaning, part one, if you make a careless mistake, you do some wrong computation, all the error will just snowball and accumulate as you proceed with part 2, part 3, part 4, and you will only get some minimum method marks. All the answer marks will be gone. So for H2 mathematics, I think the moment if you enroll into a JC as a science student, it's a must that you must take H2 math. That's why in my previous slide I said the ideal minimum requirement is A2 for additional maths, but not all students are going to have A2 for additional maths, but they want to study science, so they have to take H2 math, regardless whether they like it or not, or whether they can survive it or not. Okay, so for art students, some of them also can take H2 math also. So they could be taking as a 4 H2 students. Let's say if you are going to schools like, let's say, Eunonia, EJC, whereby all students in year 1 must take 4 H2 subjects. I taught a student there taking geography, English literature, history, and the H2 maths. So she was kind of struggling because math is so different from the other 3 subjects which she has interest in, but she wasn't given a choice to take H1, at least for year 1. Alternative, some art students, or what we call a hybrid combination, they may take H2 math and 2 other humanities. Now, one side remark is that especially for 4 H2 art students, let's say after going through year 1 and they kind of struggle with mathematics, they have the option to drop H2 math to a H1 math, because end of the day for A level the requirement will be 3 H2, 1 H1 contrasting subject, GP, project work. So they kind of have the option of dropping H2 to H1 if they really cannot handle H2 level, which is a pretty nice option. So if you are not sure whether you can handle H2 math but you want to take 4 H2, then at least you know at the end of year 1 there's a chance for you to drop to H1.